I followed her, though I did not want to. I saw a moment, brief as a life, when I could stray and never return, and I did not take it. My thoughts were free and wandered and danced and abandoned, but my form was ensnared, tethered.
The prize piece comes to join.
My collection.
Stand still.
Pain will be returned tenfold. Space aligns. Behold my collection.
Just need a moment to catch my
I will have what I want. Death will not be an escape. Scurry, scurry. Stand still. A cascade of pain. Stand
Death made
still.
real. Resistance will be punished. Time contorts. Scurry, scurry. I am the fall.
My irritation is growing. Stand still. Do what I say. Death will not be an escape. Scurry, scurry. A cascade of pain.
Death made real.
Stand. How?
Stop resisting. Reality bends. Punishment inescapable.
Arrogant toy. It will not be an escape. Scurry, scurry. Stand still. A cascade of pain.
I've been hurt. The living toy.
Alright, that was it for the showcase. The rest of the video is just going to be me explaining all the items and their cost breakdown. This is the breakdown for you if that's all you care about. It ended up being about 331C. I didn't include the cost of the gems. You can level those yourself. I only use 2020s. This POV will be in the description. This exact setup, the I can afford the uniques breakdowns, That is the exact setup I used to kill the Maven and the Minotaur. And there are multiple levels of investment in the gems, gear, and skill tree, as well as just a random leveling tree. The only thing I didn't mention or didn't show was that the Pantheons are actually Solaris and Relicash. Relicash basically makes you bleed immune on the build since we have so much leech. And we don't need anything out of Brian King. Solaris is just an all-around solid Major God Pantheon. Alright, without further ado, let's go look at all the gear. So first up is gloves. I'm going to be breaking down basically what's important on each item that I bought and on each item. So the only thing that really matters here is this base crit corruption. It was super cheap, so I went for it. A lot of power for basically no money. Next up we got the wand. Really the only thing that matters on the wand is going to be this crit multi per power charge, but technically these two lines matter as well. It's just that 10% is the most value per power. Next up we got the shield. The only real line that matters is this spell damage per power. Obviously it's nice to have some ES, but really the main thing we care about is the spell damage per power charge. Later on you'll see a really good one to get for the corruptions is going to be Fizz Taking His Chaos, but it actually went up quite a bit in price. Hopefully that wasn't me. And something you'll want to get later on, but obviously just going for cheap on this build. Next up we got the Shavs ring. Now it's really only got that int roll, but we don't really care about that much. We'll just buy any Shavs ring. Next up we got the boots. The cast res doesn't matter since we're CI, so the only thing that matters is cold res. Later on we do get an implicit, but it's super late game. It's very minimal, don't worry about it. Next up we get the badge of the Brotherhood. The only thing that matters up here is going to be this 10%. All this is completely irrelevant. Don't worry about any of those lines. This is the only thing that matters. And this is just quality of life. Just make sure Frostblink basically only like a 1.2 second cooldown if you get a high roll, but don't spend too much extra money getting it. Next we have the Taste of Hate. Since we're not a Fizz conversion build, the only line that matters is this top one. Just get as high as you can for as cheap as you can, basically. Simple as. Next up we got the chest piece, which I chose to do a status card. Basically we're just looking for any eye level 84 to hit the resistances. 6 link, it was only 10 super cheap. And I know I needed a dex on the chest piece, so I went ahead and crafted it with dex instances. What we're looking for is basically high percent ES and evasion and high flat evasion and ES with basically just one high res roll, which is exactly what I got here. Obviously I got a pretty bad percent evasion and energy shield. I would ideally not want a hybrid, I'd want a high regular with an open, and then we're also looking for an open prefix to craft Fizz Taken As the Vicious mod, which I'll craft here in a second. And then basically we're done. Took me about 28 essences, so 52C. Go ahead and buy the ring. I was deciding whether to buy the helm or the ring next, and just ended up being better budget to buy the ring next. Basically all we're looking for is that enough strength to be able to wear all the strength gems, essentially. All res ended up just working perfectly for the build in terms of what I needed, and then just a high res roll, which you could swap around if you needed, with a dual res implicit. Energy shield is nice, mana is kind of whatever, but I did want an open prefix. You'll see here in a second to craft the non-channeling. It's not necessary, but it is nice since we're a little tight on mana. Uncraft that. So going for the helmet, I was looking at resistances after I bought the ring and the chest piece, and I knew I basically just needed one high res roll and dex. I could have gotten the dex on the ring, but it ended up just being cheaper to craft with dex essences. So I just bought a fractured res. I didn't really care which one it was, ended up being fire. And we're just going to craft with dex essences to get a high flat ES or a high percent ES roll, and then just craft the remainder. That's all I really cared about. This is what we ended up on. Horrible helmets. Basically got nothing else on it, but hey, that's all I needed. I ended up getting the 2%, so I just crafted flat. Ideally, you'd get a high flat and a high percent on the item already, and then you'd craft Fizz Taken As fire, but it's not really necessary, and I was going for cheap, so 8C craft easy. This is just a reminder, It's especially important on militant faiths to import into PoE before you buy one. You click that plus button down here at the bottom, and you control V into PoE, and you can check the notables. So I'm putting it in the socket here and checking. And you see it bricks this keystone right here. So I couldn't use this drill. We're checking that keystone. This one, and this one are the important ones for this build. So I need to be able to not break any of them. And this is me buying the jewel. Ended up being 60C for one that didn't break my build. Is what it is. The only thing on the jewel, obviously, we care about is the keystone, which comes from the mod High Templar Nefarious? What was it again? High Templar Dominus, sorry. Freeform. The other mods don't really matter until you're min-maxing. So he doesn't break any of my keystones and we're good. Next up, we're going with the belt. I left the belt basically as the last item because there was a lot of them up for sale, and I didn't know how much lightning res I was going to need to cap my build. Basically, just buy whatever you need. High percent mana is nice. As I said earlier, we are kind of tight on mana. I like to, just 18% or higher is good, and then this is, higher is better, but not important. Next up, we're going for the jewels. We're just looking for double damage and percent ES. I ended up needing exactly one res roll to res cap the build with an all res charm later on. So basically I just wanted one damage mod, percent ES, and a res roll. It doesn't matter which one you get, fire, lightning, or cold. You can always res swap later on Harvest Bench, never forget that. And the next clip is going to be me explaining, I have pre-recorded, of how to buy charms for the build. These are what I consider the relevant charm affixes, these being all the prefixes and these being the suffixes. These are the top, or what I consider you need at least one of each, because it's hard to get your res. If you can make your res without this, you don't need it. But it feels really bad without this one mod, because you would have no AoE on the budget build. And you need the stun immunity, otherwise, because stun threshold is based off your life, not your energy shield, so you'll constantly be stunned without this mod. So the idea is that you would make sure that you can get at least one. Since this is a suffix, I'd want one prefix. These are quite expensive, so I'd really just want the stun immunity, and I bought this jewel earlier. As for something like the area power charge, since it's a prefix, you would want one with any of the following suffixes that are relevant for the build. You see they're not expensive. And if you need resistances, you would check one of these, and since it's a suffix, you could take any prefix. And that's how you find charms for the build. And rack, okay. So, these are me just buying the charms. It turns out getting anything with stun that was important for the build was just way for pricey, so I only care about that one mod on this. We just need it. So only 5C, super cheap. This one just ended up being the most power for the amount that I spent. We got the evasion per frenzy, which is really, really big since we get about, I think we have 9 frenzy charges on this build, so that's a lot of percent increased evasion, which we don't have much scaling on the build. And crits have culling strike, it's about 11% more DPS. And then we just got a flat crit chance while maxing power charges, and just being really powerful for the build, for the cost, and I needed that all res to cap me. And then, last but not least, we got the Eldritch Implicits. Basically on the helmet, we're going for damage per power charge, and Fizz taken as Chaos, which is free for the build since we are CI, so we're immune to Chaos. It's basically just 6% physical damage immunity, essentially. And damage per power charge. So on the chest piece, we're going for a Grace Aura effect. We don't have much in terms of evasion scaling, like I said earlier, and it's a lot of evasion to get that mod. And the other one we're going for is non-Grace Aura effect, but I actually ended up hitting this right here, this crit multi for spell damage, and I was looking on POB, and it was a little bit more damage, like 1.5% more or something like that, and it was barely less CS, like 60 less CS. I was like, whatever, we'll just stay on that. In total, it took me, I believe, 24 ichors, embers, which is about like 12C, so not that expensive. They're not that rare mobs anyways. And the only thing left is to anoint our amulet, and this ended up just being the most power for the cost. A black, a red, and a sepia ends up being about 7C in total. I didn't count this up yet because, I mean, you should have one, but the black and red together is like 7C in total. So that's everything. Again, here's the cost breakdown that you can't see. Here's the cost breakdown. In case you were curious again, POB will be in the description, and I appreciate you guys watching.